Blood on a marble floor is hard to clean, but betrayal leaves a stain that never washes out. I thought she was just collateral damage, a pawn he could easily discard. But when the silk of her dress tore, revealing the hidden ink on her skin, the most ruthless boss in the city stopped breathing. The penthouse suite atop the Waldorf Astoria in Beverly Hills smelled of Tom Ford tobacco vanille and impending heartbreak. Penelope Hayes stood near the edge of the sunken living room, her fingers tightly interwoven in front of her. At 220 pounds, Penny had always known she took up space in a world that preferred women to be invisible. She was all soft, thick curves and vulnerability, a stark contrast to the razor-sharp, blood-soaked edges of the Costa Syndicate. Across the room, Roman Costa poured himself a measure of Macallan 25 into a baccarat crystal glass. He wore a bespoke charcoal Brioni suit that clung to his broad shoulders, his dark hair immaculately swept back. Roman was a man carved from ice and violence, the undisputed king of the West Coast underworld. For the past 2 years, Penny had been his wife on paper, a human shield bought and paid for to settle her father's $3 million gambling debt to the Costa family. "The paperwork is on the table," Roman said, his voice a low, gravelly baritone that usually sent shivers down her spine. Today, it felt like a firing squad. Penny looked at the thick manila envelope resting on the Calacatta marble coffee table. "What is this, Roman?" "Your exit strategy," he replied, not looking at her as he took a sip of the amber liquid. "The debt is cleared. The Rossi family has been neutralized. I no longer need a civilian wife to maintain the facade for the federal task force. You're free to go." The words felt like physical blows. Penny's breath hitched, her chest tightening against the fabric of her custom-made, emerald-green Oscar de la Renta gown. She had spent 24 months trying to survive in a world of venomous vipers, smiling at galas, turning a blind eye to the blood on Roman's knuckles when he came home at 3 a.m. She had patched his wounds. She had listened to his night terrors, holding his massive frame against her plush body while he shook from the ghosts of his past. She thought it meant something. She thought they meant something. "Just like that?" Penny asked, her voice trembling despite her desperate attempt to keep it steady. 2 years, Roman. 2 years of my life, acting as your property, your alibi, your confidant. "It was a business arrangement," Roman interrupted, turning to face her. His slate-grey eyes were devoid of any warmth. "Inside that envelope is the deed to a villa in Lake Como, the keys to a Mercedes G-Wagon, and the routing number to a secure Swiss account containing $5 million. You will never have to work a day in your life. You're set." "I don't want your blood money," Penny snapped, a rare flash of anger piercing her sorrow. "I wanted a life. I thought we were building something." Roman's jaw tightened. He walked toward her, his heavy footsteps echoing on the hardwood floor. He stopped mere inches away, towering over her. "You thought wrong. You let your emotions cloud your judgment, Penelope. In my world, love is a liability I cannot afford." "Then what were the late nights?" she whispered, staring up at his handsome, stony face. "What was last week in Monaco? When you held me, you told me I was safe." "I told you I would protect my investment," Roman said, his voice dropping to a harsh whisper. He reached out, his knuckles brushing against her soft cheek, before he abruptly pulled his hand away, as if she burned him. "Don't look at me like that, Penelope. It was a transaction. You were never mine. A heavy, suffocating silence fell over the penthouse. Penny felt hot tears welling in her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She had spent her entire life being bullied for her weight, dismissed for her gentle nature, and treated as a commodity by her deadbeat father. She would not let Roman Costa break whatever dignity she had left. Before she could respond, the heavy mahogany doors of the penthouse swung open. Sienna entered. Sienna was the daughter of the Chicago outfit's boss, a woman bred for the Mafia. She was terrifyingly thin, angular, and sharp, wrapped in a vintage Chanel slip dress that left nothing to the imagination. She was everything Penny was not: ruthless, connected, and physically conforming to the unattainable standards of the elite underworld. "Roman, darling," Sienna purred, her heels clicking aggressively against the floor. She glided to his side, sliding her manicured hand possessively down his chest. "Is the maid service done clearing out the trash? Nico is waiting downstairs with the convoy." Penny's face burned. She looked at Roman, praying for a defense, a flicker of hesitation. Nothing. Roman stared at her with dead eyes. "She was just leaving," Roman said flatly. "Good," Sienna sneered, looking Penny up and down with undisguised disgust. "I need the closets cleared. I don't think my clothes will fit her where her tents used to hang." Penny swallowed the lump in her throat. She didn't look at Sienna. She kept her eyes locked on Roman, giving him one last, lingering look of absolute heartbreak. "Keep your money, Roman. Keep your house. Keep all of it. I came into this hell with nothing, and I'll leave with nothing." She turned on her heel, her emerald gown sweeping the floor as she marched toward the exit. "Not so fast!" Sienna's shrill voice rang out. Penny felt a sharp, claw-like grip on her forearm. She jerked, but Sienna's acrylic nails dug into her skin. "Let go of me," Penny warned, her voice dropping an octave. "You think you can just walk out of here like some tragic martyr?" Sienna hissed, stepping into Penny's path. "You've been living off Roman's dime for 2 years, eating his food, wearing his diamonds. Look at you. You stretch the seams of that dress just standing there. You don't get to take the high road, you fat cow. You leave when we say you leave." "Sienna, enough," Roman commanded from across the room, his tone annoyed but not urgent. "Let her walk out." "No," Sienna spat, her eyes wild with malicious glee. She wanted to humiliate Penny completely. She wanted to break the woman who had somehow survived 2 years in Roman's inner sanctum. "She thinks she's better than us. Let's see what she looks like when we strip away the Costa protection." Sienna yanked Penny's arm violently backward. Penny, caught off guard, stumbled in her heels. She tried to catch her balance, twisting her torso. Sienna's large diamond engagement ring, a gift from a previous, now deceased mobster husband, caught the delicate silk chiffon at the neckline of Penny's gown. With a sickening wry-ipe, the fabric gave way. The heavy silk tore violently down Penny's left shoulder and across her upper back, exposing her bare skin to the cool, air-conditioned breeze of the penthouse. Penny gasped, immediately reaching around to clutch the torn fabric against her chest, her face flushing crimson with profound embarrassment. "Don't touch me!" she yelled, shoving Sienna backward with a surprising amount of force. Sienna stumbled, her stilettos catching on the rug, sending her crashing onto the sofa. "You bitch!" Sienna shrieked. But Penny didn't care about Sienna. She was frantically trying to pull her ruined dress up. Across the room, the heavy thud of a falling glass shattered the tension. Roman's Macallan tumbler had slipped from his fingers, exploding into glittering shards and amber liquor on the pristine marble. Roman wasn't looking at Sienna. He wasn't looking at Penny's face. His eyes, wide and completely stripped of their icy facade, were locked onto Penny's exposed left shoulder blade. High on her back, stark against her pale skin, was a tattoo. It wasn't a dainty piece of parlor art. It was jagged, raised with old scar tissue, a crude branding that had been carefully inked over but never fully hidden. It depicted a crimson crown pierced by a rusted iron nail, flanked by the Roman numerals for November 9th, 11th, Ix. Roman felt the air leave his lungs. The sounds of the penthouse, Sienna's complaining, the distant hum of Los Angeles traffic, faded into a high-pitched ringing. The world tilted on its axis. November 9th, 2011. The date was burned into his soul. 15 years ago, the rival Moretti syndicate had ambushed his family's compound in Palermo. They had slaughtered his parents and locked a 16-year-old Roman in the basement of a burning warehouse to burn alive. He remembered the smoke. He remembered the skin melting off his forearms as he tried to break the iron door. He remembered giving up, waiting for death. And then the door had opened. A girl, no older than him, hacking through the padlock with a fireman's axe. She had dragged his unconscious, heavy body out of the flames, through the mud and into the woods. He had been blind from the smoke, unable to see her face. But as she pulled him, her shirt had torn on a barbed wire fence. He had reached out in a delirium, his bloody hands gripping her shoulder. He had felt the raised, angry welt of a fresh brand on her skin, a punishment mark given to the lowest servants of the Moretti cartel. The crimson crown and the nail. He had passed out. When he woke up in a safe house days later, the girl was gone. His surviving uncle told him the Moretti men had caught the traitorous servant girl, who freed him and executed her, dumping her body in the ocean. Roman had spent 15 years and millions of dollars hunting for the ghost of the girl with the crimson crown tattoo. He had slaughtered the entire Moretti bloodline in revenge for her. He had built an empire of blood and steel, all dedicated to a nameless savior he thought was at the bottom of the Mediterranean. And she was standing in his living room, the girl he owed his life to, the woman he had just casually discarded, the woman who had been sleeping in his bed for 2 years, hiding her past under layers of modesty and custom clothing. "Roman?" Sienna asked, noticing the terrifying shift in the room's energy. She stood up, brushing off her dress. "Look at her. She's crazy. Have Nico throw her out." Roman didn't hear her. He took a slow, heavy step forward, stepping directly onto the shattered glass. It crunched beneath his Italian leather shoes. His chest heaved. The cold, calculated Mafia Don was gone. In his place was a feral, desperate beast. Penny took a step back, misinterpreting his terrifying intensity. She clutched the torn dress tighter. "I'm leaving," she stammered, her heart hammering against her ribs. "I'm going, Roman. You don't have to." "Where did you get that?" Roman's voice wasn't his own. It was a raw, gravelly rasp that tore from his throat. Penny froze. She realized he was staring at her shoulder. Panic flared in her eyes. She had kept the tattoo hidden for 15 years. She had never let Roman see her without a shirt in the light. She always wore robes, always undressed in the dark. It was her deepest shame, the reminder of the horrific childhood she spent as a captive servant to the Morettis in Sicily before escaping to America, changing her name, and being adopted by the abusive man she thought was her father. "It's nothing," Penny whispered, shrinking into herself. "It's an old mistake. I'm sorry." "Roman, what is wrong with you?" Sienna demanded, marching up to him and grabbing his bicep. "She's white trash. Let the guards handle her." Roman didn't even look at Sienna. He simply swung his arm out in a brutal backhand. The strike connected with Sienna's shoulder, sending her flying backward with a violent shriek until she slammed into the far wall, collapsing in a heap of tangled limbs and Chanel silk. Penny gasped, stumbling backward in horror. Roman had never been violent in front of her. Never. Roman closed the distance between them in 2 massive strides. Penny squeezed her eyes shut, turning her head away, expecting him to strike her too. Instead, she felt his large, calloused hands that had strangled men to death, gently, almost reverently, cup her face. He fell to his knees in front of her. Penny opened her eyes in shock. Roman Costa, the ruthless king of Los Angeles, was kneeling on the glass-covered floor at her feet. His hands were shaking violently as they held her cheeks. "Palermo," Roman choked out, a single hot tear breaking free and tracking down his sculpted face. "The warehouse. The fire." Penny's breath stopped. The color drained completely from her face. "How?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. "How do you know about that?" "I was the boy in the basement," Roman said, his voice breaking. He looked up at her, his eyes agonizingly vulnerable, filled with a sudden, overwhelming devotion that bordered on madness. It was you. You pulled me out of the fire." Penny stared at him, the pieces of the past 15 years violently colliding in her mind. The boy in the dark, the boy she had dragged through the mud, nearly breaking her own back, defying the monsters who owned her. She had fled to America to hide from the Morettis, never knowing the boy she saved became the most dangerous man in the world. "You died," Roman whispered, his thumbs stroking the soft skin of her jawline. "They told me you died. I burned their entire empire to the ground for you. I built this—" He gestured wildly to the opulent penthouse. "For you." He slowly rose to his feet, his towering frame casting a shadow over her. He reached out, his trembling fingers gently brushing against the exposed, scarred skin of the tattoo on her shoulder. Penny shivered, but she didn't pull away. "And I just told you to leave," Roman breathed, the realization of his own actions crashing into him with the force of a freight train. He pulled her against his chest, crushing her soft body into his hard frame. He buried his face in her neck, inhaling her scent like a dying man finding oxygen. "You're not leaving," Roman growled into her skin, his voice suddenly vibrating with a possessive, dark promise. "You're never leaving. You belong to me. You always have." From the floor, Sienna groaned, holding her bruised shoulder. "Nico!" she screamed toward the hallway. "Nico, get in here!" The heavy doors banged open. Nico, Roman's hulking enforcer, burst into the room, his hand reaching for the Glock holstered inside his jacket. 3 other armed guards flooded in behind him, scanning the room for a threat. "Boss," Nico barked, confused by the sight of Sienna on the floor, and his boss aggressively embracing the woman he was supposed to be evicting. Roman slowly lifted his head from Penny's neck. He turned his face toward his men. The vulnerability from a moment ago was instantly replaced by a terrifying, lethal calm. He kept one arm firmly wrapped around Penny's waist, pulling her flush against his side, shielding her torn dress from their view. "Nico," Roman said softly, a deadly edge to his voice. "Yes, boss?" Roman looked at Sienna, who was looking up at him with terror dawning in her eyes. "Take Sienna down to the soundproof room in the basement," Roman ordered, "and prep the jet. We're going to Sicily." The Gulf Stream G650ER sliced fiercely through the turbulent transatlantic night, its opulent cabin serving as a silent, soaring sanctuary far above the dark clouds. Penny sat rigidly on the plush, tufted velvet sofa, her trembling frame swallowed entirely by Roman's oversized cashmere sweater. It draped heavily over her soft, full figure, deliberately hiding the jagged crimson crown tattoo that had just violently rewritten her fate. Roman knelt directly before her, adamantly refusing to take a proper seat. His strong, calloused hands she knew had ended countless lives, were gently, rhythmically massaging her bare calves. The undisputed, terrifying boss of the West Coast underworld was acting as her devoted, penitent servant. "You're staring," Penny whispered, her cheeks flushing a deep crimson. The raw, unmasked intensity burning in his slate-grey eyes was utterly overwhelming. It was a staggering contrast to the cold, calculated indifference he had weaponized against her merely hours ago in Beverly Hills. "I am worshipping," Roman corrected smoothly, his gravelly baritone voice thick with a heavy, unfiltered emotion she had never heard before. He leaned forward, pressing a warm, lingering kiss to her dimpled knee. "For 15 agonizing years, Penelope, I truly thought I was a ghost walking among the living. You breathed life into my scorched lungs in that burning basement, and then the world took you away from me. Every single man I killed, every rival empire I brutally dismantled, was a bloody monument dedicated to the brave girl I couldn't save." Penny looked away, her fingers nervously tracing the expensive hem of the cashmere sweater. I am not a ghost, Roman. But I am also not the mythical girl you imagined all these years. Look at me. I'm not like the glamorous women in your dark world. I'm not sharp. I'm not thin. I am not Sienna. Roman's jaw clenched dangerously at the mere mention of the traitorous woman. He reached up swiftly, his large hands gently but firmly cupping her face, forcing her to look directly into his eyes. Do not ever insult yourself by comparing a living goddess to a meaningless parasite. You survived the Moretti family's unspeakable cruelty. You survived my foolish, blind coldness. Your body, your beautiful softness, your unyielding strength. It is the absolute only real thing in my entire life. You are magnificent, Penelope. You are my queen. The true, undisputed Donna of the Costa Syndicate. The private flight landed smoothly at Falcone Borsellino Airport in Palermo, just as a brilliant, fiery dawn broke across the horizon. A menacing motorcade of heavily armored black Range Rovers immediately whisked them away to the Villa Igiea, a historic, heavily fortified stone estate overlooking the crashing waves of the Tyrrhenian Sea. However, this homecoming was not purely a romantic, healing pilgrimage. Nico approached Roman urgently as they entered the grand, sweeping foyer, his face grim and pale. Boss. Sienna broke entirely during the basement interrogation. She wasn't just acting out of petty jealousy. She was actively feeding our secure operational routes to the Chicago outfit. But there is a much worse complication. The Chicago boys are secretly backing Lorenzo Moretti. He miraculously survived your purge. He's here, right now in Sicily, actively rallying mercenaries to reclaim his family's lost territory. Penny gasped sharply, all the warm blood draining instantly from her face. Lorenzo. How was the sadistic monster who had pinned her down and branded her all those years ago? She vividly remembered the rusted iron nail, the searing, blistering pain, the cruel laughter dancing in his eyes. Her legs buckled, her heavy, soft frame swaying dangerously, but Roman caught her instantly, his powerful, muscular arms wrapping securely around her thick waist. "He's alive!" Penny choked out, suffocating terror clawing fiercely at her throat. Roman's eyes darkened into pitch-black voids of pure, unadulterated violence. Not for long. The elaborate trap was deliberately set at the ancient ruins of the Teatro Antico di Taormina. Lorenzo Moretti, arrogantly believing he had cleverly lured Roman Costa into a fatal ambush, stood triumphantly amidst the weathered stone columns. He was a weasel-like man, nervously clutching a heavy, suppressed beretta, surrounded by 20 highly trained mercenaries. What the foolish Lorenzo simply didn't understand was that Roman Costa absolutely never walked blindly into traps. He meticulously designed them to slaughter his enemies. Roman stepped silently out from the dark shadows of the ancient amphitheater, completely unarmed. His tailored suit blended flawlessly into the dark Sicilian night. "Costa!" Lorenzo sneered loudly, his arrogant voice echoing sharply off the ancient stones. "You have nowhere left to run. I am going to joyfully finish what my proud family started 15 long years ago. And then I am going to find that fat, pathetic American wife of yours and make her squeal." A deafening crack violently split the quiet night air. One of Lorenzo's elite mercenaries dropped instantly to the dirt ground, a high-caliber sniper bullet perfectly centered in his forehead. Then another body dropped, and another. Utter panic erupted immediately as dozens of bright red laser sights suddenly painted the chests of the remaining, terrified men. Nico and the lethal Costa hit squad had the entire theater perimeter completely locked down. Roman didn't even flinch. He walked slowly, deliberately down the ancient stone steps, resembling a dark predator, casually approaching cornered prey. Lorenzo frantically raised his shaking gun, but before his finger could graze the trigger, Roman lunged forward with blinding speed. He disarmed Lorenzo with a brutal, bone-snapping twist of the wrist, sending the gun clattering into the dry dirt. Roman ruthlessly kicked the back of Lorenzo's knees, forcing the crying man down onto the cold stone floor. "You missed one crucial detail, Lorenzo," Roman whispered darkly, his rough voice echoing like the Grim Reaper himself. "My wife." From the massive arched entryway of the theater, Penelope emerged. She was no longer the frightened girl in a torn emerald dress. She wore a stunning, brilliantly custom-tailored black silk trench coat that cinched tightly at her waist, beautifully emphasizing her lush, heavy, commanding curves. Her dark, thick hair blew fiercely in the warm Mediterranean night wind. She walked with a heavy, deeply purposeful stride, closely escorted by 4 heavily armed guards. Lorenzo looked up, his rat-like eyes widening in utter confusion, which quickly morphed into absolute horror as he finally recognized the distinct face of the helpless girl he had cruelly branded 15 years ago. The servant girl. Well, the fat pig, it cannot be. Penny stopped squarely in front of him. She looked down in deep disgust at the pathetic, broken man who had ruthlessly tortured her. For years he had haunted her darkest nightmares. But looking at him right now, securely beneath the protective shadow of her devoted husband, he was absolutely nothing. "I survived your terrible fire, Lorenzo," Penny said calmly, her steady voice ringing beautifully with the undisputed authority of a true mob queen. "And I pulled your absolute greatest nightmare straight out of the burning ashes." Roman slowly pulled a heavy, jagged, rusted iron nail directly from his suit jacket pocket, a flawless replica of the exact tool used to brand Penny's flesh. He respectfully handed it to her. The ultimate retribution. "His worthless life is completely yours, Maya Regina," Roman declared loudly, stepping respectfully back and deeply bowing his dark head in total, unwavering submission to her power. Penny looked blankly at the rusted nail. She looked down at Lorenzo's whimpering, terrified face. Then she looked lovingly at Roman, the ruthless man who had literally torn the criminal world apart just to find her, the man who truly worshipped every single thick, soft inch of her body. She casually dropped the heavy nail directly into the dirt. "I absolutely do not need to brand a dead man," Penny said coldly. She immediately turned her back on Lorenzo, her gorgeous curves swaying with absolute confidence, and walked gracefully up the steps. Roman smirked darkly, his cold heart swelling immensely with a dark, violent pride. He swiftly drew his own weapon. "The Queen has spoken," Roman said softly. Two deafening gunshots rang out sharply into the quiet Sicilian night. The treacherous Moretti bloodline was permanently erased from the earth. Roman turned instantly and walked briskly up the stone steps, quickly catching up to Penny. He tightly wrapped his strong arm securely around her soft, thick waist, pulling her heavy body flush against his hard frame, his warm lips pressing fiercely against her temple. "Where to now, Mrs. Costa?" he asked smoothly, the formal title no longer a fake contract, but a sacred vow. Penny leaned comfortably into his solid strength, looking out proudly over the sparkling ocean. "Take me home, Roman. We have an empire to run." The beautiful Sicilian night lovingly embraced them, a perfect, silent witness to the glorious, triumphant rise of the true, absolute Crimson Queen. If this breathtaking tale of deep betrayal, shocking twists, and ultimate mob retribution left you completely speechless, you absolutely cannot stop here. We bring you the most intense, heart-pounding, and dramatic real-life Mafia romance stories every single week. Do not miss out on the incredible drama. Please smash that like button right now. Drop a comment below with your favorite shocking moment. Share this video with your friends and subscribe to our awesome channel for more amazing stories right now.